Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is King of Thy Hill. I'll be your host tonight. And tonight is story time. I have here again H.P. Lovecraft's Great Tales of Horror. Wonderful book. Yeah, and it's time for chapter 4 of The Lurking Fear. Are you ready? This chapter is called The Horror in the Eyes. So, I'll read again the introduction. So, The Lurking Fear. Like Herbert West, Reanimator, this story was commissioned by George Julian Hutain for Homebrew, where it was serialized from January to April 1923. Lovecraft wrote it in November 1922 and prevailed upon Hutain to have his new friend Clark Ashton Smith illustrate it. Although obliged to add a punch at the end of each segment, Lovecraft has managed to write a more unified tale than Herbert West. The setting in the Catskills echoes that of Beyond the Wall of Sleep, while its theme of hereditary degeneration recalls facts concerning the late Arthur Jermyn and his family and anticipates the rats in the walls. So this is the final episode, the final chapter, right? Shadow on the Chimney, where he investigated the house. Quick recap. Shadow on the Chimney, chapter 1. He investigated the house, and his friends got brutally murdered, and he saw a weird shadow on the chimney. Passer in the Storm, where he was investigating a bunch of different places, and then there was a storm, and they hid inside, and his friend was like, hey, I'm going to look out the window at this tree, and then he got his face torn off. And then, What the Red Glare Meant, which was the final thing, where he crawled through the tunnels, and he found that there are multiple things. So, anyway, time for chapter 4, The Horror in the Eyes. Now, I only very slightly looked ahead. Very slightly. I know. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. But I only very slightly looked ahead. And the important thing about this chapter, actually, no. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody. That'd be rude. That'd be so rude. Anyway, so The Horror in the Eyes. Chapter 4. There could be nothing normal in the mind of one who, knowing what I knew of the horrors on Tempest Mountain, would seek alone for the fear that lurked there. That at least 2 of the fear's embodiments were destroyed formed but a slight guarantee of mental and physical safety in this Acheron of multiform diabolism. Yet I continued my quest with even greater zeal as events and revelations became more monstrous. When, 2 days after my frightful crawl through the crypt of the Eyes and Claw, I learned that the thing had malignly hovered 20 miles away at the same instant the eyes were glaring at me. I experienced virtual convulsions of fright. But that fright was so mixed with wonder and alluring grotesqueness that it was almost a pleasant sensation. Sometimes, in the throes of a nightmare whose unseen powers whirl one over the roofs of strange, dead cities towards the grinning chasm of Nis, it is a relief and even a delight to shriek wildly and throw oneself voluntarily along with the hideous vortex of dream doom into whatever bottomless gulf may yawn. And so it was the waking nightmare of Tempest Mountain. So it was with the waking nightmare of Tempest Mountain. The discovery that 2 monsters had haunted the spot gave me ultimately a mad craving to plunge into the very earth of the accursed region and with bare hands dig out the death that had leered from every inch of the poisonous soil. As soon as possible, I visited the grave of Janmar Tense and dug vainly where I had dug before. Some extensive cave-in had obliterated all trace of the underground passage, while the rain had washed so much earth back in the excavation that I could not tell how deeply I had dug that other day. I likewise made a difficult trip to the distant hamlet where the death creature had been burnt, and was little repaid for my trouble. In the ashes of the fateful cabin I found several bones, but apparently none of the monsters. The squatters said the thing had only 1 victim, but in this I judged them inaccurate, since besides the complete skull of a human being, there was another bony fragment which seemed certainly to have belonged to a human skull at some time. Though the rapid drop of the monster had been seen, no one could say just what the creature was like. Those who had glimpsed it called it simply a devil. Examining the great tree where it had lurked, I could discern no distinctive marks. I tried to find some trail into the black forest, but on this occasion I could not stand the sight of those morbidly large boles, or of those vast serpent-like roots that twisted so malevolently before they sank into the earth. My next step was to re-examine with microscopic care the deserted hamlet where death had come most abundantly, and where Arthur Monroe had seen something he never lived to describe. Again, chapter 2, he looked out and he got his face torn off. Though my vain previous searches had been exceedingly minute, I now had new data to test, for my horrible grave call convinced me that at least one of the phases of the monstrosity had been an underground creature. This time, on the 14th of November, my quest concerned itself mostly with the slopes of Cone Mountain and Maple Hill, where they overlooked the unfortunate hamlet, and I gave particular attention to the loose earth of the landslide region of the latter eminence. The afternoon of my search brought nothing to light, and dusk came as I stood in Maple Hill looking down at the hamlet and across the valley to Tempest Mountain. There had been a gorgeous sunset, and now the moon came up, nearly full and shedding a silver flood over the plain, the distant mountainside, and the curious low mounds that rose here and there. It was a peaceful Arcadian scene, but knowing what it hid, I hated it. I hated the mocking moon, the hypocritical plain, the festering mountain, and those sinister mounds. Everything seemed to me tainted with a loathsome contagion, and inspired by a noxious alliance with distorted, hidden powers. So he is obviously sort of insane at this point, because he's looking at this beautiful moonlit scene and he just sees the horror, the fear, the lurking fear that lives there. So, sort of insane there. But presently, as I gazed abstractedly at the moonlit panorama, my eye became attracted by something singular in the nature and arrangement of a certain topographical element. Without having any exact knowledge of geology, I had from the first been interested in the odd mounds and hummocks of the region. I had noticed they were pretty widely distributed around Tempest Mountain, though less numerous on the plain than near the hilltop itself, where prehistoric glaciation had doubtless found feebler opposition to its striking and fantastic caprices, whatever. Don't know how to pronounce that, whatever. Now, in the light of the low moon, which cast long, weird shadows, it struck me forcibly that the various points and lines of the mound system had a particular relation to the summit of Tempest Mountain. That summit was undeniably a center from which the lines or rows of points radiated indefinitely and regularly, as if the unwholesome Martense mansion had thrown visible tentacles of terror. The idea of such tentacles gave me an unexpected thrill, and I stopped to analyze my reason for believing these mounds glacial phenomena. The more I analyzed, the less I believed, and against my newly opened mind there began to beat grotesque and horrible analogies based on the superficial aspects and upon my experience beneath the earth. Before I knew it, I was uttering frenzied and disjointed words to myself. My God, molehills! The damned place must be honeycombed. How many? That night at the mansion, they took Bennett and Toby first on each side of us. Then I was digging frantically into the mound which had stretched nearest me, digging desperately, shiveringly, but almost jubilantly, digging, and at last shrieking aloud with some unplaced emotion as I came upon a tunnel or a burrow, just like the one through which I had crawled on that other demonic night. After that I recall running, spade in hand, a hideous run across moonlit mound-marked meadows and through diseased, precipitous abysses of haunted hillside forests, leaping, screaming, panting, bounding toward the terrible Martense mansion. I recall digging unreasoningly in all parts of the briar-choked cellar, digging to find the core and center of that malign universe of mounds. And then I recall how I laughed when I stumbled upon the passageway, the hole at the base of the old chimney, where the thick weeds grew and cast queer shadows in the light of the lone candle I had happened to have with me. What still remained down in that hell-hive, lurking and waiting for the thunder to arouse it, I did not know. 2 had been killed. Perhaps that had finished it. but there still remained that burning determination to reach the innermost secret of the fear, which I had once more come to deem definite? Yeah, which I had once more come to deem definite, material, and organic. So, I like to, I'll flip back to the page. I'd like to point out there, he's a great, like, that's some amazing writing. Before I knew it, I was uttering frenzied and disjointed words to myself. That's followed with that string that echoes somebody coming to this realization for the first time, like, molehills, the whole place is molehills, how many are there? Like, and then the digging desperately, shiveringly, but almost jubilantly, digging and at last shrieking aloud with some unplaced emotion. That's, yeah, that's like this person who is fighting to figure out what this is, just digging and digging and digging, and at last just like shrieking aloud because they found whatever it is. And then, of course, there's the wonderful lines of a hideous run across moon-litten, mound-marked meadow and through diseased, precipitous abysses of haunted hillside forest, leaping, screaming, panting, bounding. Like, there's good alliteration there. Yeah. Okay. So, let's continue. Sorry, he's a good author. He's a really good author. He's just amazing. So, my indecisive speculation whether to explore the passage alone and immediately with my pocket light, or to try to assemble a band of squatters for the quest, was interrupted after a time by a sudden rush of wind from outside, which blew out the candle and left me in stark blackness. The moon no longer shone through the chinks and apertures above, and with a sense of fateful alarm, I heard the sinister and significant rumble of approaching thunder. A confusion of associated ideas possessed my brain, leading me to grope back towards the furthest corner of the cellar. My eyes, however, never turned away from the horrible opening at the base of the chimney, and I began to get glimpses of the crumbling bricks and unhealthy weeds as faint glows of lightning penetrated the woods outside and illumined the chinks in the upper wall. Every second I was consumed with a mixture of fear and curiosity. What would the storm call forth? Or was there anything left for it to call? Guided by a lightning flash, I settled myself down behind a dense clump of vegetation, through which I could see the opening without being seen. If heaven is merciful, it will be some days effaced from my consciousness the sight that I saw, and let me live my last years in peace. If heaven is merciful, it will some day efface from my consciousness the sight that I saw, and let me live my last years in peace. I cannot sleep at night now, and I have to take opiates when it thunders. The thing came abruptly and unannounced, a demon, rat-like, scurrying from pits remote and unimaginable, a hellish panting and stifled grunting. Then from that opening beneath the chimney burst a multitudinous and leprous life, a loathsome night-spawn flood of organic corruption more devastatingly hideous than the blackest conjurations of mortal madness and morbidity. Seething, stewing, surging, bubbling like serpent slime, it rolled up and out of that yawning hole, spreading like a septic contagion and streaming from that cellar at every point of egress, streaming out to scatter through the accursed midnight forests and strew fear, madness, and death. God knows how many there were. There must have been thousands. To see the stream of them in that faint, intermittent light was shocking. When they had thinned out enough to be glimpsed as separate organisms, I saw that they were dwarfed, deformed, hairy devils or apes, monstrous and diabolic caricatures of the monkey tribe. They were so hideously silent, there was hardly a squeal when one of the last stragglers turned with the skill of long practice to make a meal in a custom fashion on a weaker companion. Others snapped up what it left and ate with slavering relish. Then, in spite of my daze and fright, my days of fright and disgust, my morbid curiosity triumphed, and as the last of the monstrosities oozed up alone from that netherworld of unknown nightmare, I drew my automatic pistol and shot it under cover of the thunder. Shrieking, slithering, torrential shadows of red, viscous madness chasing one another through endless, ensanguined corridors of purple, fulgurous sky. Formless phantasms and kaleidoscopic mutations of a ghoulish, remembered scene. Forests of monstrous, overnourished oaks with serpent roots twisting and sucking unnameable juices from the earth. Verminous with millions of cannibal devils, mound-like tentacles groping from underground nuclei of polypus perversions, insane lightning over malignant ivied walls and demon arcades choked with fungus vegetation. Heaven be thanked for the instinct which led me unconscious to places where men dwell, to the peaceful village that slept under the calm stars of clearing skies. I had recovered enough in a week to send to Albany for a gang of men to blow up the Martens mansion and the entire top of Tempest Mountain with dynamite, stop up all the discovered mound burrows, and destroy certain overnourished trees whose very existence seemed an insult to sanity. I could sleep little after they had done this, but true rest will never come as long as I remember that nameless secret of the lurking fear. The thing will haunt me, for who can say the extermination is complete, and that anomalous phenomena do not exist all over the world? Who can, with my knowledge, think of the earth's unknown caverns without a nightmare dread of future possibilities? I cannot see a well or subway entrance without shuddering. Why cannot the doctors give me something to make me sleep, or truly calm my brain when it thunders? What I saw in the glow of my flashlight after I shot the unspeakable straggling object was so simple that almost a minute elapsed before I understood and went delirious. The object was nauseous, a filthy, whitish gorilla thing with sharp, yellow fangs and matted fur. It was the ultimate product of mammalian degeneration, the frightful outcome of isolated spawning, multiplication, and cannibal nutrition above and below ground, the embodiment of all the snarling chaos and grinning fear that lurked behind life. It had looked at me as it had died, and its eyes had the same odd quality that marked those other eyes which had stared at me underground and excited cloudy recollections. One eye blue, the other brown. They were the dissimilar Martens eyes of the old legends, and I knew in one inundating cataclysm of voiceless horror what had become of that vanished family, the terrible and thunder-crazed house of Martens. The end. So that was The Horror in the Eyes. Right? That's... two thumbs up. Two thumbs up to H.P. Lovecraft. Like, a wonderful author. And, like, the horror in the eyes. He sees these... one eye blue, the other eye brown. These Martens eyes of legend. And he realizes in that instant they never left. It's not the ghost. So, yeah, that was... Yeah. I really like H.P. Lovecraft. We will be reading more H.P. Lovecraft. There will be one this Friday. I don't know what story it will be yet. I will find another story in this book. You can't see it, but H.P. Lovecraft's Great Tales of Horror. I'll find another story in here, and I'll read that on Friday. So that'll be Friday. But yeah, thanks for joining me for The Lurking Fear. Again, 2 thumbs up to H.P. Lovecraft, wonderful author. I'd advise you to read the books, read the Great Tales of Horror, especially. I don't think I will read. Hold on, what is it? I don't think I'm gonna read The Color Out of Space, because The Color Out of Space is, one, quite long. It's about Yeah, Color Out of Space is about 21 pages, which isn't too long, but it doesn't have page breaks really. And to give you a sense of how long these things are, that last chapter that I just read was here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and about 4 pages, I'd say. So, you know, I'd have to split it up into like 5 or so things, and I don't know how I'd do that. So, I'm probably not gonna read the Color Out of Space, but that's one you should read. I'd advise reading. If you haven't watched my Call of Cthulhu video, I might redo that at some point, splitting up in different chapters. I might not, but you should also either watch that or read Call of Cthulhu. So, anyway, my name is King of Thy Hill. I have been your host tonight. Thank you everyone for joining me. This was a wonderful story time, and I'll see you all next time.